Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm very excited to have you here. So today we're going to be talking about taxes for non-US residents. Now, I have been talking about my LLC formula for about a year now, and I've been highly recommending that if you're a non-US resident and you want to expand your business into the US so that you can have access to Stripe and be able to sell your products, services, courses, whatever you want to do online with ease and seamlessly, then you should definitely consider registering an LLC. But the one question I get over and over again is, I don't want to do this if I'm going to be paying a lot of taxes. So I wanted to really explain what it means to pay taxes or what the tax situation is like for non-US residents if you have a US LLC that is registered in the US. Now, I just finished my taxes for 2020. The deadline for taxes was April 15th, and I finished filing my taxes, and I feel like this is a good time to talk about it because this is the best time for you to register a new company so that you can start selling, and by the time the next year's taxes come around, you will be way prepared. Now, one disclaimer I have to put right here is that I am not a legal tax attorney. This is not supposed to be construed as professional advice. This is only my opinions, and based off of my own experiences, I still highly recommend speaking with a tax person or an accountant or whoever is in the best position to tell you what your tax situation is going to be. But on a very general level, this is what I have gathered from my own experience. So the tax situation for a non-US person is very simple and straightforward. Now, the thing is that it has to be based on 3 criteria. Now, for you to pay taxes in the US, you have to be engaged in trade or business in the US. This is called ETOB, or sometimes it's called ETBUS. Now, what does it mean to be engaged in trade or business in the US? Now, this is broken down into 3 simple criteria that you can use to determine the answer to this question. Number 1, you have at least 1 dependent agent in the US. Now, what does this mean? This means that you have an employee in the US, somebody who works for you exclusively, full-time, and resides inside of the US. Now, this means the person works for you exclusively. This does not count if you're talking about contractors who are independent contractors and work for multiple people, like people you hire on Upwork or Fiverr or even off of Facebook, but they work maybe hourly and they work for multiple clients. Now, if you have an employee or somebody who is working for you exclusively inside of the US, then this counts towards making you engaged in trade or business in the US. The second criteria is that this agent does something that is sustainable or is substantial to further your business in the US. Now, as opposed to something like that is administrative or something that is not as like weight carrying. And finally, the third criteria is that you are engaged in considerable continuous or regular business in the US. Now, these 3 things will determine whether you're engaged in trade or business in the US. Now, as a non-US resident, you see that most of this immediately does not necessarily apply to you. You're most likely not going to have employees in the US. You're probably not even living in the US. And even when you hire contractors, if they are inside of the US, it doesn't really apply to you, right? Because like none of these, they will probably do only a small part of your business. They are not the main reason or a substantial part of what generates income for you in your business. So automatically that engaged in trade or business thing you begin to see that it does not apply to you. Now, another thing that you want to understand is what kind of businesses are in general taxable and what kind of businesses are not taxable. For many of us, we're going to be running online businesses, and in general, things that are not taxable include things like, personal, not personal services, things like digital products, online services, personal services, as long as they are not done inside the US. So personal services done outside of the US, and even things like selling physical products, but only if the shipping point is from outside the US. So if all of these things are basically describing the kind of businesses that you do or your kind of business, then you begin to see that you're not necessarily liable to pay taxes as a non-US resident. This is one of the reasons why I highly recommend registering your business in the US, because it can be a tax haven for you. You get all of the benefits of actually having a business in the US, which is Stripe and a US bank account, but not necessarily the heavy taxes that comes with it. Now, something to note is that all businesses that are carried out from within the US are potentially taxable. So this may include my Amazon entrepreneurs and those of you that are running your businesses on Amazon. There is a likelihood that you may be taxed, and this like it's a lot of criteria that may or may not affect the taxability of your income as an Amazon entrepreneur. That's why I still recommend speaking with somebody who is an accountant or a tax person or tax expert. When you discuss and explain your specific situation to them, you see that they will be able to determine, okay, yes or no, it does not apply to you. So I'm giving you general blanket like information that you can use to help you determine whether this is a good thing or a bad thing, to help you determine whether you want to move ahead with registering your business in the US. Now, knowing all of these things, there are some other factors that can help determine whether or not you be eligible to pay taxes in the US in any given calendar year. Now, this involves physical presence. It's called the physical presence test, which is where if you spend up to 183 days inside of the US within any calendar year, you may be you may be liable to pay taxes for that particular year. And also another thing to consider, that which I've already mentioned, is the employee situation, which is where you have a dependent agent or a full-time employee who is inside of the US. Now, once you think of all these criteria put together, if they do not apply to you, it means for the most part you can be 90 to 99% sure that you won't be liable to pay taxes at the end of the year. Now, does this mean that you will not be filing your tax documents at the end of each year? The answer is no. You will still be required to file your tax documents, even if you may not be paying actual cold hard cash in taxes to the US. Now, what kind of forms will a non-US resident be required to fill? You'll be required to fill the form 5472, which automatically, due to a recent change in the laws, goes along with the form 1120. Now, there's also another form called the 1040NR, and this form will be required if you have US income to report. So let's say at the end of a calendar year, you are now, your accountant tells you, okay, some part of your income is going to be taxable in the US. That income is going to be reported on your 1040NR. But if you don't have any US income that is supposed to be reported, you will not need to submit the 1040NR. So but every single person is going to be required to submit 5472, or which goes along with the 1120. That's the 1120 form, and these are the two things that your accountant is going to file for you. This also differs slightly if you run, like for me, I run a single member LLC, and if you run a multi-member LLC, then your own situation might be different because you'll be taxed as a partnership and you might be required to file in additional forms. So your accountant is going to tell you what those forms are. I'm speaking from the angle of a single member LLC, as per I am the only person in my LLC that exists as an LLC owner. So these are the things that you want to put in mind. For costs of doing all of these taxes each year, the cost range from provider to provider. I have seen prices anywhere from $500 to $1,000. I've been quoted up to $2,000, and sometimes it depends on the amount of money that you have made in a particular year. Let's say if you're making above 100,000, it will be different from somebody who is making less than $100,000 in a year. So that's something to also consider. And the way I see it, if you're making up to 100,000, or even if it's $50,000 in a year, you find out that spending even $1,000 on preparing your tax forms at the end of the year is not a bad investment to consider. Now, inside of my course, the LLC formula, I give you recommendations of the accountant that I use, all the things that I use, and how I am able to keep my expenses really low as I manage my LLC as a non-US resident. So if you're looking to find out how to get your LLC registered affordably, if you're looking to get a US bank account easily, and also get my recommendations for accounting, bookkeeping, taxes, and all of that, you want to grab the LLC formula. I will leave the link inside of the description, but this is just what you need to know. Now, so if you're considering running an LLC from outside the US, you find out that you most likely, for most cases, except people who are doing Amazon or drop shipping, you may not be paying taxes. And even if you do pay taxes, you will come to find out that the percentages are not as bad as you think, because you will only be taxed on your profit, not your revenue. So when you deduct your expenses from your income, whatever is left is what will be taxable. And they have a graduated tax system which is based on your income bracket. So you find out that it's not as bad as you think. And there are still lots of opportunities for you to do tax deductions inside of your business, which help you reduce the amount that will be taxed at the end of the year. So if you want to get the LLC formula, follow that link in the description, and you can share this with anybody who is a non-US resident and is considering getting a US LLC. And I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye bye.